Imagine this. 15 expert accountants failed to stop a dangerous deal. A millionaire CEO was seconds away from signing his own downfall. And the only person who dared to speak the truth was not a lawyer or a partner, but a delivery girl with nothing to lose. What she said in that boardroom changed everything. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us in the comments where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The elevator doors of Summit Tower opened with a soft chime, and Lena Rivera stepped out with her delivery bag pressed close to her chest. She was just a delivery rider, used to carrying meals through busy streets, storms, and traffic. Today, however, felt different. The building around her was tall, sharp, and filled with people who signed papers worth more than anything she could imagine. Her order was clear. Lunch for Marcus Belden, the powerful millionaire CEO of the Belden Group. Everyone in the city knew his name. Reporters wrote about his decisions. Competitors feared his moves, and employees spoke of him with quiet respect. Lena only knew him from news stories, but now she was walking to his floor with food in her hands and a nervous beat in her chest. She followed the silver signs pointing to level 47. The hallways were polished, the walls lined with glass that reflected her small figure. She felt out of place, but kept her steps firm. Halfway down the corridor, she noticed a door left slightly open. Voices drifted out, low but urgent. She stopped. A calm but firm voice was speaking. It belonged to Nathan Crowley, Marcus Belden's longtime business partner. "The numbers will show growth," he said. "No hesitation, no questions. We finalize today." Lena hesitated. She should have walked away, but something about the tone made her pause. She leaned closer, her heartbeat quickening. Inside the room sat 15 accountants, all in suits, papers spread across the table. Their faces looked tired, their eyes lowered. One accountant shifted nervously, but said nothing. Then she heard it. Nathan mentioned losses. The word cut through his smooth speech. He spoke about covering mistakes, dressing them up with false charts, and pushing Marcus to sign a deal that was built on lies. The accountants stayed silent. Their silence was louder than his words. Lena's hands tightened on the strap of her delivery bag. She was no accountant, but she understood enough. This was not just a business risk. This was a trap. A man was about to be fooled by the very people who were supposed to protect his money. She thought of Marcus Belden, waiting for his lunch, unaware of what was happening just a few steps away. She thought of how easy it would be to ignore all this, drop the food, and leave. But her heart told her to stay. Sometimes courage comes when no one is asking for it. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward the large glass doors of the boardroom. Her shoes echoed on the marble floor. The men and women inside looked up as she entered, holding the food bag like a shield. "Delivery for Mr. Belden," she said, forcing a small smile. Her voice sounded calm, but her heart was racing. Marcus Belden sat at the head of the table, tall, sharp-eyed, and ready to sign a thick folder of documents. He gestured for her to place the food on the side table. But Lena did not leave. She stepped closer. "The chef added something special," she said softly, trying to buy time. "He said it helps people make the right choices." A few accountants exchanged uneasy glances. Nathan frowned. His eyes narrowed, sharp with suspicion. "Set it down and go," he ordered. Lena pretended to stumble. A small cup from the bag tipped and splashed water across the edge of the contract. Gasps filled the room. Papers were quickly lifted. Pens paused, and the moment of signing was broken. Marcus Belden wiped the table calmly, then closed the folder. "We will continue tomorrow," he said firmly. "I don't sign wet documents." The room shifted with murmurs. Nathan's jaw tightened. His eyes met Lena's for a brief second. The look was not anger, but calculation. As the meeting ended, people filed out quietly. Marcus walked past Lena, giving her a small nod. She could not tell if it meant thanks or nothing at all. Nathan lingered behind. He leaned close enough for only her to hear. "You were lucky today," he whispered. "Tomorrow, there won't be interruptions." Lena held his gaze and answered, "I deliver on time." When she left the floor, her knees felt weak, but her mind was clear. She had delayed something dangerous, but only for one day. Tomorrow, the truth would need to be stronger than a spilled drink. She whispered to herself, one step, then another. She knew she had just opened a door to something much bigger than her delivery route. The finance floor of Summit Tower felt quieter than the rest of the building. The air carried the faint smell of ink and polished paper, like a library that guarded secrets in the form of numbers. Lena Rivera stepped carefully, her delivery bag slung over her shoulder, though it was now empty. She wasn't here to drop food anymore. She was here to find truth. The hall stretched long, lined with glass offices where reports and charts ruled over people's lives. Most doors were shut, but one office stood open with papers scattered on the desk. The nameplate read Priya Menon, Senior Analyst. Lena paused at the doorway. The room was empty, but a stack of draft charts sat waiting. She stepped inside. Her eyes moved quickly over the pages. Two sets of projections stared back at her. One chart told a steady story of modest but real growth. The other leapt with impossible promises, curves that stretched upward like a fantasy. She pulled out her phone and snapped a photo. The difference was obvious, and it was dangerous. Then, from across the hall, a voice carried out through another door left half open. It was smooth, controlled, and immediately familiar. It was Nathan Crowley. "Assure them the risk is minimal," Nathan said over a speakerphone. "No hesitation, no doubt. If anyone resists, remind them the models were validated. And if Oscar Vale raises his concerns, let him know his private matters could surface at the wrong time." Lena's heart pounded. She didn't know Oscar, but she knew a threat when she heard one. This wasn't persuasion. It was blackmail. She pressed her back against the wall, her breath shallow, listening. Nathan continued laying out his plan, calm as if he were reading a grocery list. When the call ended, silence filled the hall again. Lena realized she now carried more than suspicion. She carried evidence in her mind. Still, words could vanish. She needed proof no one could twist. Slowly, she followed the sound into a corner office. A sleek phone buzzed on a table, glowing with missed calls. She slipped inside before doubt could stop her. Pulling her own phone from her pocket, she tapped record and tucked it behind a tall plant near the desk. Moments later, the door opened. Nathan walked in mid-conversation, his tone steady. "Marcus trusts me. He always has. Tomorrow's signature will be smooth." He paused, then added the words that sealed his true nature. "The accountants are already compliant. Everyone has a weakness, debts, family troubles, mistakes. When fear whispers, people obey." Lena's stomach twisted. The truth was now captured, his voice recorded with cold clarity. When he left, she retrieved her phone, her hands trembling only after the door shut. But her relief was short. Two security staff turned the corner. "This floor isn't open to visitors," one of them said politely. "Sorry," Lena replied with a forced smile. "I got lost." They walked her back to the elevator without suspicion. As the doors closed, her smile faded. Nathan would not stop, and if he discovered her interference, he would strike first. She stepped out into the street and found a cafe across from the tower. Sitting in the corner, she pulled out a notebook and listed the names she remembered from the boardroom. 15 accountants, each one forced into silence. Among them were Oscar Vale and Priya Menon, Both had looked uneasy, and both had reasons to stay quiet. Later that night, she found Oscar alone by the vending machines, staring at his tea. She approached carefully. "I'm Lena," she said softly. "I deliver food here. I also overheard something. I think you've been asked to change numbers that aren't true." His eyes widened with fear and shame. "I can't talk about this," he whispered. She played a short clip of Nathan's recorded words. Oscar's face crumpled. "He knows about a loan my brother took under my name. If I speak up, it ruins us." "You don't have to stand alone," Lena said. "But silence will ruin more than you." He lowered his head, then gave a slow nod. Later, she met Priya, who was finishing reports at her desk. Lena explained quickly, showing her the proof. Priya's voice shook as she admitted her own burden. "He said my visa could face delays if I caused trouble." Her eyes filled with quiet anger. "I thought I had no choice." "You do," Lena said. "We can bring the truth together." That night, the three of them sat in the cafe with tired faces and heavy hearts. For the first time, the accountants saw they weren't alone. But as hope began to rise, Lena's phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. "Interfere again, and you will regret it." She stared at the screen, then set the phone face down on the table. Fear pressed against her, but she spoke calmly. "Tomorrow, we bring the truth." The city lights outside blinked like watchful eyes. Lena knew the fight had only begun. The door to lies was still open, but now so was a door to courage. The restaurant on the 46th floor had closed its doors for the night, but the staff allowed Lena Rivera to stay at a corner table. She sat with a mug of tea that had already gone cold and stacks of papers she had copied from earlier offices. Through the tall glass windows, the city stretched like a sea of lights. She traced numbers with her finger, connecting dates, amounts, and signatures. Every page told the same quiet story. Money moved where it should not have, and lies were wrapped in charts to cover the trail. Lena was not an accountant, but she listened the way her father once taught her. "Machines tell you what's wrong if you listen long enough," he used to say while fixing old radios. Tonight, the numbers spoke the same way. Small gaps, odd approvals, and transfers that pointed to Nathan Crowley's hand. She rubbed her eyes, exhausted but determined. She thought of Marcus Belden, the CEO, who trusted Nathan completely. How would he react when he saw the truth? Would he believe a delivery rider over his partner of many years? Her question was answered sooner than expected. Footsteps echoed across the empty floor, steady and sure. Marcus himself appeared, hands behind his back, eyes distant, as if weighed down by thoughts. He stopped when he saw Lena sitting among the papers. "Working late," he said quietly. "I do better at night," she answered with a faint smile. He studied her, not with suspicion, but with curiosity. Then he sat across from her, as if ready to listen. Lena hesitated, then pulled out her phone. She played a short clip of Nathan's recorded words. The voice spoke coldly about controlling the accountants with fear. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. She showed him the mismatched charts, the transfers that circled back to hidden accounts. Marcus leaned back, silent for a long moment. Then he whispered, "I wanted to believe I was imagining this." "You weren't," Lena replied, "but you can decide what happens next." His eyes met hers. Something in his gaze shifted from doubt to grim acceptance. "Tomorrow will not be easy," he said. "Truth never is," Lena answered. After he left, she searched the storage cabinets near the restaurant. Dusty boxes held years of old records. She flipped through invoices and approvals until her fingers were black with dust. Finally, she found them. Wire transfers with Marcus's initials copied but not signed by his hand. Someone had cut corners and every trail led back to Nathan. She photographed each page, building proof brick by brick. By midnight, exhaustion pulled at her, but she forced herself to stay awake. She lay on a couch in the employee lounge, whispering her mantra. One step, then another. Sleep came in short bursts. At dawn, she splashed cold water on her face, tied her hair, and felt the weight of the day ahead. She returned to the lobby, ready to go upstairs, but something had changed. Security now blocked the executive elevators. One guard shook his head politely. "Restricted access today," he said. "Restroom?" she asked, masking her nerves. He pointed down a corridor. Lena slipped into a side door and ran up the emergency stairs, counting each landing under her breath. Floor 32, 33, 34. By 38, her chest burned. She found a freight elevator and pressed 47. The lift jerked upward, then froze between floors. The lights went dark. Panic rose, sharp and hot. Then a voice came from the shadows. "Is someone there?" "It's Lena," she said. "Delivery rider. Sometimes a troublemaker." A soft laugh answered. "Marcus, CEO. Sometimes a slow learner." They shared a quiet moment in the dark. Lena turned on her phone's flashlight and showed him the photos, the transfers, and the files. He studied them with heavy eyes. "I wanted this to be wrong," he whispered. "It isn't," Lena said gently, "but we can make it right." When the lights flickered back and the elevator doors opened, Marcus stepped out with renewed purpose. Together, they called Oscar Vale and Priya Menon, asking them to stand as witnesses. Their voices trembled, but they agreed. Helen Park, the executive assistant, appeared with an envelope in her hands. Her face was troubled. Inside was a document declaring Marcus compromised, giving Nathan control of the meeting if doubts arose. It was a weapon disguised as policy. Marcus folded it carefully, his jaw set. "How long until the board votes?" Lena asked. 30 minutes, Helen replied. "Then 30 minutes is enough," Lena said. The group formed a plan. Walk into the boardroom, show the evidence, speak the truth together. No more whispers, no more silence. The night had been long, filled with fear and shadows. But as morning light poured through the windows, Lena felt the shift. Courage was no longer a thought. It was a choice, and it was time to act. The boardroom of Summit Tower gleamed with polished wood and tall glass. Pens lay neatly by thick folders, ready for signatures. Nathan Crowley stood at the head of the table, his voice steady as he reviewed numbers that looked perfect on paper, but carried poison underneath. The board members nodded politely, most too tired or too trusting to question. The meeting seemed set to close with a signature, but the doors opened. Lena Rivera stepped in first, her delivery bag slung across her shoulder, though it no longer carried food. Behind her walked Marcus Belden, his face calm but firm. Helen Park followed with quiet determination, and then Oscar Vale, Priya Menon, and the rest of the accountants who had been silent for too long. The room stilled. "We're sorry to interrupt," Lena said, her voice steady and clear. "But before anyone signs, there is truth that needs to be heard." Nathan's eyes narrowed. His smile was polite but sharp. "This is irregular," he said smoothly. "So is lying," Oscar replied quietly, placing his notebook on the table. Marcus faced the board, his voice steady. "I asked for 3 minutes." Those 3 minutes became a turning point. In the first, Lena played a short recording on her phone. Nathan's voice filled the room, cold and certain, explaining how fear and personal secrets kept the accountants compliant. Silence followed, heavier than any shout. In the second minute, Priya and Oscar laid out the real projections, simple and honest, free of inflated promises. The numbers were not as dramatic, but they were real. In the third minute, Marcus placed photos of old transfers and approvals on the table. The trail was clear: hidden accounts, Forged initials, money moved under the surface. He spoke with calm precision, not blaming but presenting facts. Nathan tried to push back. Context matters, he argued. Snippets can mislead. Helen stepped forward and connected a small speaker. The longer recording played, revealing Nathan's plan in his own words. Marcus won't see it coming. He trusts me. Tomorrow the signature will be smooth. The room grew colder. The board members shifted uncomfortably, some covering their mouths, others staring at the table. The balance of power tilted without a sound. Nathan's composure cracked. Anger spilled from his voice. He spoke of years spent in Marcus's shadow, of sacrifices ignored, of resentment growing quietly until it hardened into betrayal. His words carried pain, but they could not erase the evidence. A knock on the door broke the silence. 2 investigators entered, accompanied by building security and a compliance officer. Helen had called while the audio played. Documents were handed over, each step measured and professional. No shouting, no chaos, just the calm weight of truth settling where it belonged. Marcus addressed the board, his voice firm but not defensive. He admitted fault for trusting too blindly and promised new safeguards to protect both the company and the employees. He asked the accountants to stay, offering them protection from retaliation. His words carried responsibility, not excuses. The board listened. Some members nodded, others wiped quiet tears. Truth had cost them time and pride, but it had also freed them from a dangerous trap. In the days that followed, Summit Tower felt different. Doors stayed open a little longer, and meetings carried more questions than before. Fear no longer ruled the accountants. Numbers were written honestly, even if they were smaller. Trust began to rebuild, not through grand speech. Months later, an order appeared on her system. Jasmine rice, grilled chicken, and a lime placed on the left. The delivery address was Summit Tower. She smiled at the coincidence and accepted the request. When she arrived, Marcus Belden stood in the lobby, no longer the untouchable millionaire, but a man who had learned the cost of trust and the value of listening. "You didn't owe me this visit," he said. "No one owes anyone a miracle," Lena replied, handing him the bag. "But we can always bring lunch." They laughed, and in that simple sound, the past felt lighter. There was no dramatic ending, no fairy tale promise, only a friendship built on respect and truth. In the end, the story was not about money, contracts, or power. It was about courage. It was about a delivery girl who refused to stay silent and a CEO who finally listened. It was about ordinary people finding their voice and choosing honesty when silence was easier. That was the real ending, quiet, steady, and different. In the end, this was not just about numbers or contracts. It was about courage, honesty, and one voice that refused to stay silent. Remember, even the smallest act of truth can change the course of a life.